Well, I was going to my next question that I was going to put to you was why do you think that Tolkien didn't finish or even properly begin the sequel, The New Shadow? Why do you think that is? Because there is kind of a reason to it. Like Tolkien does talk about it in a later comment, but I just want to see what your thoughts are from what we know of this story.
Is it a story reason, or is it?
Yeah.
I was going to say that maybe just stuff got in the way, like as in other writings or things like that. Like you said, this was
that's when he started
50s.
blowing up on TikTok, and then he just like took his career in another direction altogether.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. This it's kind of story related. Yeah, it's because of the text.
Maybe because the Fourth Age is supposed to, like, as in when the end of the Third Age. That's supposed to be when the world of men take over. And obviously, if people aren't aware that Tolkien, the way he wrote about Middle Earth, it's not a fantasy world. It's not a different world like, I don't know, in Star Wars or something or
Game
whatever.
of Thrones.
It's not like Game of Thrones. It's supposed to be the history of our world, where we live now. So the Fourth Age, the beginning of men, was like, that would be, like, they would be our distant relatives, I suppose. And so maybe he just thought that, like, it wouldn't make sense to have this like new evil coming in, because then that might just it probably seems like a better ending to the original story, where all the evil gets wiped out and all of the other, like, the dwarves disappear, the elves leave for Valinor, and we don't really hear too much about the hobbits. I know that in like one of the cartoons we see that the hobbits just kind of grow into men as well, which is a bit weird.
Yeah,
but
they just like become men, I suppose.
Yeah,
each generation gets taller and taller.
I suppose they were getting taller. That was in Ralph Bakshi. No, that was in,
the Rankin Bass, was it? Yeah.
Rankin Bass one, yeah. So they obviously it was saying like that they got taller after a while, and then they'd probably, like, I was going to say crossbreed. That sounds so weird. I mean, just like, get into like interracial marriages, I suppose, between, men and hobbits and stuff like that. And then eventually they would kind of just become one peoples. So maybe is that anywhere in the right direction where you would say it wouldn't make sense to be like, because obviously the ultimate end of Tolkien's story is our life now.
Kinda.
Am I going way to like
no, but like, no, you're kind of right with two things, because obviously what you're saying is correct about that's got nothing to do with the reason why he ended the book. The whole thing about this being English mythology, I suppose, and yeah, I've heard that a good few times where this is kind of in Tolkien's mind set thousands of years ago in our own time. Or in our own world, but that's not the actual reason he gives, but you still kind of touched on it. I'm just gonna read a quote from Tolkien himself, the great man, and what he says about this sequel is, quote, "I did begin a story placed about 100 years after the downfall, but it proved both sinister and depressing. Since we are dealing with men, it is inevitable that we should be concerned with the most regrettable feature of their nature, their quick satiety with good, so that the people of Gondor in times of peace, justice, and prosperity would become discontented and restless, while the dynasts descended from Aragorn would become just kings and governors, like Denethor or worse. I found that even so early there was an outcrop of revolutionary plots about a centre of secret satanistic religion, while Gondorian boys were playing at being orcs and going around doing damage. I could have written a thriller about the plot and its discovery and overthrow, but it would just have been that, not worth doing." So basically, to sum up what Tolkien is trying to say there, so Tolkien, he probably knew that it would be too depressing to showcase a new evil, especially after such a tremendous victory over Sauron. I wanted to ask you, Johnny, as well, can you think of a modern example where a franchise probably over-milked the same cow, as it were?
Star Wars?
Yeah, well done, yeah. How so?
I mean, bringing back Palpatine.
Yeah.
I suppose that was just ridiculous. Like, if any of our listeners are fans of the what's it called? Is it just called the new trilogy, or is there a
the sequel trilogy, I suppose.
Sequel trilogy, yeah. People are fans of that. I mean, that's fine. There's definitely elements from all those movies that I enjoyed, but I have to say the last movie, I was just like, this is the biggest pile of shit I've ever seen. It's the whole way through it, I was like, this is terrible. And then when I finally saw the big real Palpatine, I was like, oh, that's it. Like, I mean, what have they done? What have they done to our baby?
So annoying, because I remember actually being with you in Spain, like, 2 years before the movie came out, maybe it was a year before the movie came out, and the trailer dropped, and there was a big trailer of whatever was going on, didn't reveal much, and then just before the title came up of like The Rise of Skywalker, you heard that and you hear like Palpatine's laugh, and you're like, oh, cool, how's this going to work? What's going to happen? And you were anticipating how they were going to bring back one of the biggest villains of all time, and they just explained it with one simple line, 3 words: somehow Palpatine returned. And that was it. We didn't get to hear like, how's he alive? Like, what's going on? So
they could have even just said it was like some means that are unnatural, or something like that. Like, that even would have been better.
Well, they did. He did kind of. Palpatine himself. He does say that himself. He says something about like the dark side of the Force, and something
dark side,
something complete. But yeah, so yeah, we know how Star Wars audience felt about Darth Sidious's return. It basically makes his defeat in the original trilogy and the climax less earned and pointless, and I imagine that this is what Tolkien feels too. And I certainly commend him.
Vader's arc, in terms of how he overcame Palpatine and overcame Darth Sidious, and eventually, cast him down into that chasm and defeated him. And it just kind of makes his whole story arc just like invalid, I suppose. And just kind of, well, actually, you didn't defeat him. He just came back. It's fine. So
and the whole thing with the whole thing with Rey as well. Anakin is the chosen one. And then it's just like, well, actually, Rey is the chosen one. She's the one that eventually does kill Palpatine. It's just kind of weird, because the chosen one, the whole prophecy of Anakin, going to the Sith and then becoming who he was. And it was just kind of, in hindsight, there was a lot of mistakes in the story room. But I certainly can commend...
I was going to say, like, we should commend Tolkien for noticing that and being like, oh, I could make a bestseller here and I could make more money off it, I'm sure. Yeah. But he realized that that doesn't exist anymore, I suppose, nowadays, where a writer can see this. I have a great plot or initial, beginnings of a story here that could be really interesting. It could be an exciting thriller, and it would, it won't be a bad story. I can definitely make it a good story.
Yeah.
But
could have been very enjoyable.
Make loads of money, and but in terms of how would it fit into the entire world that he's already created, and he's like, actually, you know what? It's better that I just don't continue with this story. So that's really commendable, and something that, as I said, is lost on the modern studios. On maybe any sort of Disney or Marvel studios that are making their new stuff at the moment. But we won't go down that road anymore. We won't harp on that. But there's definitely we're not going to hate on Star Wars on Disney or on Marvel, because if anybody knows Dave and I, we are big fans of all that world as well. So definitely enjoy it. But kudos to Tolkien for realizing not to cash in on this I suppose this money cow. Yeah,
and we're such big massive fans of both Star Wars and Marvel, but everything has their flaws. I just still like those things more than other things. But the best thing about Tolkien is there are no flaws. It's all perfect. It's like literally
it's completely perfect.
It's just perfect. So and he shows an incredible amount of restraint not writing this sequel, which probably would have been class. And I'm already so intrigued about this tiny little conversation between two characters. I really want to know what happens, but I guess we never will know. But I just want to say as well, Tolkien in his Catholic upbringing could see that human beings are fundamentally flawed and they're easily tempted by evil, like we see with his characters such as Boromir and Isildur. Tolkien was always very careful not to portray his own views on his work, unlike his friend C.S. Lewis, who he obviously has a more allegorical message, I suppose, in his writings. Narnia, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was basically like, Jesus' sacrifice and Christianity and all that mumbo jumbo. But Tolkien, he wanted his works to be for everyone, and he simply could not persist with this sequel, and that is why he chose not to write it. So there you have it. And it is true, because you might have some people, maybe staunch atheists, that will pick up Narnia, or the mother might pick it up and go, I've heard about this guy and I know exactly what he's putting in here, and don't want to be brainwashing my children. Because like I had the opposite effect when I was when I was a kid, and Mum, I wanted to read this book called The Golden Compass, and it was a big fantasy book, and Mum found out that it was written by someone who was like a staunch atheist, and they had put lots of allegorical messages in there, and you know, things to make you think this way and that way, and she was like, no, that is a no-no
in our house.
Yeah. And I got a clip around the ear, and I got bet with the wooden spoon just for thinking of it. But yeah, there you have it.
The way Christ would have done himself.